How
Mm.
involved are you with the woolly mammoth project, and what stage is that project at?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great project. So the project itself is in like midway through, I would say. But the amazing thing about woolly mammoths is that they are very closely related to Asian elephants. So Asian elephants and woolly mammoths are more closely related than Asian elephants are to African elephants, for example, which is
Interesting.
a
That's a cool liner. That's
mind-blowing
cool.
statistic.
Yeah, that's super
Great party
interesting.
statistic. You can tell people that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
for sure. You
really
joke, but
close
those are
relative.
exactly the type of party statistics that I do offer up at parties, so I will definitely be using that one.
I feel like we might go to very similar parties.
Actually, another one that I learned yesterday is that there were woolly mammoths in Siberia the same time where there were Egyptians. Like,
Yeah,
that's
because
one that
people
I
are
was
always
like,
like, "Oh, they went extinct 20,000 years ago." You're like, "No,
yeah,
they were around way more recently than that." Like, truly, right?
yeah.
So it's
The idea of
amazing.
Egyptians and mammoths, that one was really
Yes.
like, that's bizarre. Not in the
But
same
they're
place, obviously. They're not co-located. There weren't mammoths at the pyramids, but the fact that they were on the Earth at the same time is weird to
yeah,
me.
not their preferred climate, I would say. But
Yeah.
the thing about mammoths, so there's less genetic engineering that you have to do to engineer your Asian elephant genome into a mammoth, for example.
Okay.
The bigger challenge with the mammoth is really gestating that animal, right? It's a very big baby, takes 22 months in the womb. So that is a very complicated thing that we're working on at the moment is, using surrogate elephants to carry a baby mammoth, and what that whole process looks like is a lot, again, of technologies that need to be developed for assisted reproduction, for monitoring pregnancies. These are all fantastic technologies for breeding up of endangered elephants and for really helping elephants survive in the wild. So these are all really good conservation tools to have, as well as helping with the woolly mammoth. And the reason the woolly mammoth is important is because this is, again, one of those animals that we call an ecosystem engineer. These are these animals that really play enormous roles in the landscape. And I think we can all appreciate there's nothing around today like a woolly mammoth. So when we lost the woolly mammoth from the planet, we lost that very, very important role that those species played, particularly in that very cold part of our planet. And what they do is just like elephants do in Africa, is they love to run across the landscape and just smash down trees and everything in their place. But when they break down the forest in these cold regions of the planet, it actually promotes a lot more of open pasture growth. And open pasture grassland is far better at sequestering carbon dioxide than the forest. It's far, far more effective at removing CO2 from the planet. But even more importantly is it opens up the ground to freezing a lot colder. It's really protected when you're in a forest and the ground doesn't really freeze that well. But when you open up this pasture area, you're sequestering a lot of carbon dioxide into that meadow that's growing there. But you're also really deeply freezing the soil now because it's open and exposed as that colder air comes through. And that's what creates that really important permafrost that we have in our planet. And the permafrost acts like an air conditioner for our planet. So in the warmer months, that large area of frozen ground actually helps to keep global temperatures down. And so if we had herds of mammoths, again, roaming the tundra, clearing forests, opening up this grassland, we would reduce CO2 levels in our atmosphere and also help to cool the planet down from just increasing that permafrost area. And we need that. Again, it's one of these things where it'd be great to have those animals back, but like today more than ever, where we're suffering, really badly from rising global temperatures, these species could be really helpful in helping maintain our planet's ecosystems better and actually helping reduce things like carbon and global temperatures.
Wow. Really cool. I wasn't actually sure what role they played, and I absolutely love that it's just like stomp shit. like
Yeah.
like run
And
through.
smash it down. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Like who wouldn't, especially as an animal nerd, the idea of being able to see like a mammoth,
No,
incredible, absolutely
incredible.
marvelous. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I
Yeah.
guess what I'm worried about is like this idea that it just ends up in some zoo in Silicon Valley or some shit. Like that
Yeah.
like there's a lot of investor money in Colossal, which I think it has to happen, right, to fund a project at this scale. But
Yeah.
whenever there's investor money, there's a little bit of skepticism in me of like they need to do things that will make money. Where's the money going to be? Is it going to be in some Peter Thiel zoo in Silicon Valley? Like, I hope not. I really hope not. But that's sort of like as Colossal Biosciences continues to do these amazing scientific projects. Like, I guess I guess the question is like, how can you resist the pull of like what's going to make money for investors and what's going to be like maybe even following like consumer demand and what's important for like the ecosystem and the environment, which, I 100% believe is
Mm,
your mission. But like
yeah.
in that investor ecosystem, there's always perverse incentives, right?
Well, I think this is one of the great things that have made Colossal really possible is I think that landscape, that funding landscape is shifting. And there are things now like carbon credits, biodiversity credits. There are countries all over the world that have made a commitment to not having any more animal extinctions moving forward. And they simply can't do that without embracing these technologies. So I think there are ways to use this technology to really help with carbon credits and biodiversity credits and help nations solve some of their biggest crises that they have around species that have lost biodiversity and re-engineering that biodiversity, that it's a really nice way to actually get more funding into the conservation space and to use this money in a really good way to help build a healthier, more sustainable planet. And there's nothing more valuable, right, than having healthy ecosystems. When those ecosystems break down, the whole planet falls apart. And I think there is a shift now in people really understanding that that is something that is really worth putting money into. And it's going to be worth money for countries to be able to restore their wildlife and to be able to rewild lost species, to be able to re-engineer lost genetic diversity back into those. That's something that is going to be very valuable and necessary technology for our planet.
So is there already some deal with, I presume that these mammoths, the aim is Siberia, is that right? Like where else do mammoths go? Is the aim to rewild into Siberia first?
Yeah, I mean, that would be wherever there is cold tundra is a viable habitat for mammoths. But yeah, I think those discussions would be long and complicated and ongoing. But that would definitely be the whole idea is where you would want to put these species back for sure. Absolutely.
I would love to just be at that board meeting where they're negotiating. Like, we have 100 mammoths. It's like, how do
Yeah.
you, like, what is that even, like,
Yeah.
how do you even value that? Like, how do you even
Yeah.
figure out what that's worth? Like, it's just, I have no idea how you even start that negotiation, that
Yeah.
sort of conversation, but it is a cool one that we're having. Again, I think the idea of mammoths smashing shit around the tundra and that's just
Mm,
good for the ecosystem is a lovely idea.
yeah.
It's really nice. I am just cautious of like where else it could go, where, will incentives be misaligned? Where could the technology be abused? Is this something you think about a lot? Like some critics will look at de-extinction and say we don't want Jurassic Park, right? Like that we don't
Yeah.
want that to happen because we're playing God, we're playing around with genetics that maybe we don't fully
Yeah.
understand. Like what would you say to those critics? I think you've made a good
So
case already, but I'm curious like on the abuse
yeah.
side and where it could be where incentives could be misaligned and that sort of area.
I think whenever, we get that criticism that we're playing God or messing around with things that we shouldn't be, I always go, the whole reason that we have to do this is because we've already gone too far with that, right? Like we've
Yes.
played God when we changed the ecosystem, when we've raised global temperatures, when we hunted the thylacine and countless other species to extinction. We're kind of beyond that point now, right? So now we're trying to figure out how can we use the tools that we have to around and available for us today to actually correct some of these horrific mistakes that we now know that we made. And 150 years ago, we didn't really have a deep appreciation of why an apex predator was so pivotal in the landscape. But now we can fix it, right? So I feel like we are really morally obliged to fix these problems now that we have the tools to do it. And when it comes to this investment in this, I've worked in marsupial conservation, conservation genetics for my whole career. So more than 25, almost 30 years of working in this sector and desperately trying to get the money that we need to save these species that are on the brink of extinction. And it's been really hard.
I
And
can
that's because
imagine.
there is a very limited pool of money that's available for conservation research. This
Yes.
is tapping a completely different source of money. So none of this money is detracting at all from any of that conservation funding. So we can do all of that critical conservation work, which still needs to be done. We still need to protect the environment. We still need to protect all of those species that we have left as best as we possibly can. But we also need new tools in that toolkit. We need ways that we can bring back some of this lost genetics, that we can bring back a lost species where it was critical in that landscape. And that's what these new tools are enabling us to do that isn't detracting at all from any of the budget or anything. But the investment we have now, even just from the thylacine project, I think that's the single largest investment in marsupial conservation biology that has ever happened in history. And
Right.
it's coming from this completely novel source. So I say de-extinction science is at its core conservation biology. It even goes beyond that. It's completely necessary for us to have a sustainable planet moving forward. We absolutely need these tools. We can no longer go, I don't want to genetically engineer wildlife, or I don't like the idea of doing this. We have to do it. Where
Yeah.
the conversation has to start, though, is where do we want to set limits around that? Like, how far back in time would we want to go for bringing a species back? How much do we want to engineer animals, and see them back on the landscape? So that's where the discussion has to be around how
Yeah.
much we want to use this technology. But I think, the horse has already bolted. We have to use this technology to save our planet. But setting very reasonable controls around that is where I'd love that discussion to happen. And I think
Yes.
this is one of the things that frustrates me so much, like with the discussion of the direwolf, when all of a sudden there was this explosion of people going, you can't call it that, it's not a direwolf, and it was this semantics around how you name a species or how you would classify a species. But the important question that we should be discussing as scientists is that we demonstrated this incredible ability to edit genes that have been lost for 10,000 years back in one single generation of an animal. And then I would love those scientists to spend just 5% of that time they spent worrying about how you would classify it to go, how could we use this technology right now to save a species that is going to be extinct within the next 10 years? Because again, just like the northern quoll, there are hundreds of examples of that. That's what we should be spending our time thinking about, not wondering whether we should call it a direwolf or not, which doesn't matter at all what you call it. Is what it demonstrated the ability to do and how we can use that to save our planet. So I'm really passionate about
Yeah.
people just making sure that we're really thinking about this in a thoughtful way and really thinking about this as an incredible set of tools that we can use to heal our planet. But we do want to do it in this very, careful manner. We want to do it the right way. We want to bring everybody on board with us while we're doing this process, but to really embrace this technology and think about when and where we want to set limits around it.
The Giant Shoulder mission is to explore radical ideas in biology, neuroscience, and consciousness, and elevate those stories to the highest possible level while keeping them accessible to everyone. If this interests you and you want to support independent science, then please consider subscribing to the Clips channel. Check out our 26 Neuroscience book. You can download it for free